morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really delighted to have everyone join. And if you could just, we're admitting a few people, so we'll start very soon. I want to make sure no one else is in the waiting room, but thanks all for joining. This is a really exciting event for us, and it's great to see a lot of both familiar names, but also new names. Great. So good morning. Welcome to the Advocacy Roundtable relating to MOUD and MAT in the criminal legal system. We are really delighted to have you this morning. I am Su-Ming Ye, and I'm the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project. We're the host of the event today. We wanted to give special thanks to Vital Strategies, who is our collaborator and partner in these efforts, and they are also here today. So thanks so much. As just a short background, the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project is part of the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network, and we're a legal aid agency where we provide legal assistance and representation to people who are incarcerated and detained throughout Pennsylvania, no matter what type of facility they're in, whether that's county jail, state prison, federal prison, immigration detention, a halfway house, basically seeking to ensure humane and safe living conditions. And one of those pieces is ensuring access to medical care, and that's where this fits in. This is an issue. Access to medication for opioid use disorder is an issue that we've long been concerned about and interested in, but really didn't have an opportunity to work on until our partnership with Vital Strategies. So we're very grateful for that. We were able to hire some staff. We also now have a fellow working on the issue. And so part of the project was to try to convene a number of people to work on and discuss this issue further. For the Institutional Law Project, the main focus is jails and prisons, but we thought it was incredibly important to have a cross-disciplinary network to work on this, because this is just not just a legal issue, it's a medical issue, it's a social issue, it's a community issue. And so we're really delighted to have a fantastic panel. So a few logistics before we start. If for all of you, please be sure, I think everyone's doing pretty well, just make sure you stay on mute during the program. And also, if you'd like, what you can do is you can put yourself off camera for the first portion, and then the second portion, we'd ask you to put your camera back on so we can have a more full discussion. And so basically the structure of today is it's an hour and a half. We hope you can join us for the whole time. We have half of it, about 45 minutes, where we invited some speakers to give an introduction to the issue from their areas of specialty. And then we would love to have 45 minutes of discussion to really kind of talk about these issues more in full. We'd love to hear from you if you are involved in these issues, working on it at all. And so that's kind of the structure of the program today. I will be moderator and trying to keep people on time. So if I apologize ahead if I'm being rude and telling people they have 1 minute left, and the goal is because that way we can have discussion at the end and make sure everyone has enough time to speak. So again, what you can do is if everyone is off camera, then you can always change to speaker view, and that way that will put the speakers bigger on your screen. And then after our 45 minutes, then I'd ask everyone who feels comfortable and is able to turn on your camera so that we can really engage in a discussion. All right. Also, just as a note, the first part of this is being recorded. That is the part where we have our speakers speaking, but I will note that we will not record the portion where there's the discussion, because we want that to be, people should feel comfortable to speak about the different things that they are working on. Okay, so I'm gonna just do a quick introduction for all the speakers, but I will note we have just an amazing panel. They all have incredible backgrounds. I'm not gonna go through the entire bios. We've posted them on the website, so you can look at them in full, but I will give a brief introduction. We have, first we'll have, and I apologize if I feel free to correct if I'm mispronouncing her, Dr. Laura Weinstein, who is a family physician, addiction medicine specialist, and public health researcher who works towards health equity in partnership with people who experience psychiatric disabilities, substance use disorders, and complex chronic disease. And in particular, she's the founding director of the Addiction Medicine Fellowship at Thomas Jefferson University Hospitals. And then we have Sarah Rose, who's the Deputy Legal Director for the ACLU of Pennsylvania. Her bio is very short, but let me just tell you, she's an incredible attorney, incredible person. Her bio really should be pages long, but her being a modest person is very short. But let me just say she's done outstanding legal work in a variety of areas, including medication, increasing access to medication for opioid use disorder. Then next we have Adrienne Abner, who I'm delighted to have as an attorney with the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project. And she comes to us as a nurse as well, that her first or prior career was as a nurse. And so you can read more about it in her bio. Next we have Stuart Fisk, who is a CRNP and has, again, an extensive background in HIV research, nursing, and prevention. And currently works in Pittsburgh, providing medical care and low barrier MOUD access to people at Prevention Point Pittsburgh, as well as the Allegheny County Jail. And last but certainly not least is Jerome Maynard, who is a formerly incarcerated person currently based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We thought it was incredibly important to have someone speak directly about his lived experiences. So we're delighted to have him as well. So welcome everyone. So without much more, let's just get started. Dr. Weinstein, if you could.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I do have, I can't share my screen. Can the host enable my screen sharing, please? Let's see. Great. Okay. Let me start again here and just put this up here. It's really an honor to be part of this group, and it's really my first opportunity to directly, or feel like I'm directly collaborating with all the important work that's done from the legal side of things for folks who have been marginalized by society. So this is my first time, but I'm looking forward to further collaborations. It's also critical. I was told that this group is very savvy about actual medications for opioid use disorder, being methadone, which is only delivered in specially certified federally regulated settings, and then buprenorphine and naltrexone, which are available in office-based settings. So I'm not going to go into any details whatsoever about the different delivery systems. I think you all are also very aware of the statistics in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and nationally, and the concern about them. I'm just going to spend a few minutes describing our system in the hopes that you understand a little bit more about some of the things that I believe are critical to having folks access care in the community, and perhaps also can be translated to having folks access care in other settings, including jails and prisons. So I'm employed by Thomas Jefferson University. I'm a physician there, but all my work is done in collaboration with Project Home Health Services, which is kind of the health services side of Project Home, a large organization devoted to ending and preventing homelessness in Philadelphia. Our federally qualified health center has been around for a little less than 10 years, but it has allowed us to really expand our services. So I just want to give a brief overview. In all our clinics, we offer integrated medical and behavioral health care, reproductive health care, wellness. And then at our main site, Stephen Klein Wellness Center, we have pediatrics, dental, pharmacy, and a medical legal partnership with Legal Clinic for the Disabled. Importantly, our federally qualified health center is not one site, but 4 sites. the Stephen Klein Wellness Center, which I referred to, the Hub of Hope, which is actually in the sub-basement of Suburban Station, where lots of folks who are unhoused congregate and can come there to receive all kinds of services, including, shower, laundry, and medical services. Pathways to Housing, where I'm the medical director, there's a separate slide on that. And then we're really fortunate, one of our nurse practitioner leaders has started up mobile medical services that includes MOUD to folks who are currently unsheltered. We're mostly Medicaid, Medicare, or uninsured. And I will move on to our actual MOUD programs, which we started in 2016. And we were one of the first primary care sites in the city to begin to offer access to MOUD. From the very beginning, I think we developed our philosophy, which was easy, and then developed our expertise over the years. We still are not experts, but we've learned a lot from our patients. We start from a point of radical acceptance and compassionate pragmatism, which is another way to say harm reduction. So at all our sites, we offer same-day access, participant-driven care, harm reduction services, including fentanyl test strips, and education about safe injection, all different kinds of harm reduction services. We offer our medications for opioid use disorder in individual and group format. It's integrated with medical, behavioral health, and peers. We also integrate medical care, particularly things like HCV and HIV screening, testing, prevention, and treatment, and a lot of coordination of pre and post follow-up as hospital admissions for folks who inject drugs has increased astronomically in the last few years. We're also very fortunate to be part of a unique Pennsylvania funded Center of Excellence. The partnership is Project Home, Pathways to Housing, and Prevention Point. The Pathways to Housing Project Home partnership is where I'm the medical director of the primary care services, really proud of what we do and very grateful for our triple partnership between Pathways, Project Home, and Jefferson. Pathways is a housing first organization. It offers immediate access to scattered site permanent supportive housing for people with psychiatric disabilities, and the first housing first agency to include scattered site housing for people with a primary diagnosis of opioid use disorder, which is how we've learned so much about how to continually refine meeting people where they are and helping them get to where they want to go on their own terms in the safest way possible. Pathways to Housing has approximately 600 folks housed in scattered site throughout the city. Anyone can come to us for medical services. We currently see about half of the population, and then 110 folks are in our medication for opioid use disorder program. We have about 250 people in our program overall. And I think this is where I've really learned, I will have to say, about justice and equity in a very grassroots, real way, both from the incredible modeling and care of the staff at Pathways to Housing, and then also from the experience of developing relationships with folks who really have been incredibly marginalized, and partnering with them. The fact that they allow us to partner with them is pretty incredible. So just final slide here, give some results, recent results of a program evaluation we did. We looked at 174 of our participants over the time of the pandemic, right as it started, and then through March 2021. Wanted to point out our demographics. 55% of folks in our program are Black, 81% non-Hispanic, 63% male. And we're grateful that our program is seen as available to people from Black communities, because traditionally buprenorphine rates for people who identify as Black or African American are significantly lower than folks from white populations. I also wanted to point out that even during this pandemic time, we had an overall 6-month retention rate of almost 80%, which is pretty incredible for any treatment program, particularly for one like ours that is reaching the most marginalized populations. And there was no significant differences. You're not usually happy to see no significant differences in research, but we were very happy to see that no differences in demographics, retention rate when stratified by race, gender identity, or any kind of polysubstance use. So I'll finish by saying these findings support delivery of low threshold approaches and maintenance of revised MOUD prescribing restrictions in engaging and retaining patients from marginalized populations. And you probably have my contact info, I realized, from the website, but I will stop there.
Thank you very much for that great presentation. And now we'll move on to Sarah Rose.
Hi, I'm Sarah Rose. I'm the Deputy Legal Director for the ACLU of Pennsylvania. And I've, had just a personal interest in harm reduction for many years. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the legal protections for people with opiate use disorder and the recent lawsuit that the Department of Justice filed against the Pennsylvania court system over its failure to accommodate people with opiate use disorder. So I'm going to start with sort of the story of how this DOJ lawsuit was initiated. So back in 2018, we were contacted just through our normal intake process by a woman in Jefferson County who had been charged with an offense and had accepted what's called accelerated rehabilitative disposition, which means that if you're able to complete the requirements, then you don't end up with any kind of criminal record. So she had been accepted into that program. Shortly thereafter, the president judge for the Jefferson County Court of Common Pleas, who's also the only judge for Jefferson County as well as Elk and Forest counties, issued an order saying that no one who was under any kind of court supervision in Jefferson County, which includes probation, parole, ARD, could use opiate-based medication-assisted treatment. And I think that the order is maybe emblematic of some of the attitudes that we've seen of people towards this kind of treatment, even though we know that it's very effective. The judge's order said that, basically he didn't think that it was, the court did not think that it was effective for people, and it just was, extremely ignorant. I think I'm quoting from it here. He says that, the vast majority of people in opiate-based treatment programs abuse those drugs with regularity. It makes these probationers ineffective and nearly impossible to manage. And finally, it does not appear to help the patients in any way to become productive members of society. So, you really see, this is a judge, right? And you see those kinds of views expressed. It's really disturbing. So anyway, this woman who contacted us, she was a mom, she had a job, and she's being told she had to stop using this medication that had been extremely effective for her and that she'd been on for many years. And she was just desperate, for help. In fact, she entered a residential treatment program to try to get off of buprenorphine. And even that was extremely difficult for her. She was just having a very hard time coping. At this time, we had not done any cases involving this kind of medication, and we weren't really sure what we could do because judges have a ton of discretion in terms of what they can do with respect to people who are under court supervision. And so, we really weren't sure, but luckily, we were contacted by another organization in New York called the Legal Action Center, which had a different woman in Jefferson County had reached out to. And so they reached out to us to say, is there anything that you guys can do here? And they, specialize in, in this type of law. So they had a lot of resources they provided. And once they sent those, you're like, okay, well, looks like there is actually quite a good claim under the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's also a claim under the 14th Amendment, substantive due process. So, with some help from them, we were able to put together a letter to the judge explaining why his order violated the Americans with Disabilities Act and the 14th Amendment, and asked him to reconsider it. We got a very interesting response from him, basically saying that he thought that what he was doing was right, and if we had to, file a lawsuit, then go ahead, but he wasn't going to change his mind. We also sent the copy of the letter to the Chief Counsel for the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts, which oversees the entire court system in Pennsylvania. And they took it a little bit more seriously than Judge Foradora of Jefferson County. And at the same time, the Legal Action Center filed a complaint with the Justice Department on behalf of their client. So I think between our letter and that complaint being filed, the AOPC was able to convince Judge Foradora to rescind the order, which he did on December 21st, 2018. And can tell you, calling our client to tell her what had happened and that this order was no longer in effect and she could start using her medication was one of the most gratifying experiences I think I've had as a lawyer, because she was just so grateful and so happy, right before Christmas, that she could actually enjoy Christmas with her family and not be worried about, going back to jail just for using her medication. So, that resolved the situation, for these two women. I ended up going to a meeting with Judge Foradora that he had already planned with the Clearfield County Commission on Drug and Alcohol, which was quite an interesting experience. And again, there were some of the probation officers there who, expressed these views about, just this really misinformed and outdated views about this kind of medication. And, and kind of, it's just so strange because you see these people who are so concerned about, well, how we can't drug test them because we can't tell what whether they're using illegal medication or, and they're just so concerned about people, selling it. And it's just crazy, the kinds of things that they bring up. Luckily, this lawyer from the Legal Action Center happened to be in town, and she went with me to the meeting, and she was just such a great source of information. Because at the time, Judge Foradora was saying he was going to revise the order and issue something else, but to date, he has not done that. In the meantime, the Justice Department continued their investigation, and this complaint was filed back in December of 2018, and so just in February of this year, they issued their findings from the investigation. They concluded that, and they not only investigated Jefferson County, but they were looking at all the policies of courts in Pennsylvania, and particularly drug courts are the bigger problem, because a lot of times the drug courts in Pennsylvania will, say you can't use any kind of medication, even over-the-counter medication, without prior approval, and they've been very very opposed to people using opiate-based medication-assisted treatment. So the Justice Department found they had complainants from Jefferson County, and then they also had complainants from Northumberland County, and then they also got the policies of a number of drug courts and found that they were not in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, because they prohibited people who used medication for opiate use disorder from participating in these drug courts. And drug courts can be very beneficial to people because it's a way to avoid having a criminal record. So basically, you're being denied the opportunity to participate in a program that would allow you to avoid going to trial, just because of a disability, a federally recognized disability. So the Justice Department issued its findings. It asked the courts to take a number of steps to try to remedy the problem. These included adopting or revising their policies to explicitly state that no court within Pennsylvania may discriminate or exclude from participation or deny any benefits to individuals with disabilities because they have OUD. They wanted the court system to identify an ADA coordinator who would be responsible for monitoring court programs and training court staff, overseeing investigations, which from my perspective, it would be a really important step because the court system in Pennsylvania is so decentralized. Each court is sort of its own little fiefdom, so it's hard to kind of know what's going on in each county. They also wanted, training and education for all court staff about OUD and non-discrimination requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And interestingly, they also wanted the court to pay compensatory damages to the complainants, which would include the 2 women in Jefferson County. So the AOPC responded that, essentially like, well, basically they're saying, like they always do, like, well, we're already doing a lot of these things. We're willing to do more, but what they were not willing to do, which the Justice Department demanded, is enter into a consent decree. And the reason why the Justice Department wants the court system to enter into a consent decree is because then the agreement becomes court enforceable. Ultimately, the AOPC refused, and as a result, the Justice Department filed a federal lawsuit against the Pennsylvania Unified Judicial System, which is currently pending. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. It's nice to have the power of the federal government sometimes, right? Like we certainly couldn't just go and sue the Unified Judicial System. So.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I just want to say, if you could just wrap up,
yep.
And then we can always loop back with questions.
Yeah, no, totally fine. The last thing I was just going to say is that recently the Department of Justice issued some guidance about protections for individuals with OUD, and I'd be happy to talk about that later if anybody has any questions about that. Thanks, Sumi.
Thanks, Sarah, for that incredibly important work. And now we'll turn to Adrienne Abner.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adrienne Abner. I'm with the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project, and I work specifically on the MOUD project along with other issues. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. So I have a task to do 3 things today. Number 1, to explain to you the results of a study that we've done on jails in Pennsylvania, the state of MOUD in jails. Number 2, to go over some of our client experiences, what they're actually experiencing while they're in jail, and to actually see if the policies that the jails have actually match up with our experiences. And then number 3, to go over what we do as a part of Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project, our advocacy efforts, as well as litigation. So let's get started. All right, so why is this an issue? I just want to give you a little bit of background about why we even went into looking at MOUD programs and studying that in jails. Number 1, according to the CDC, this country has reached 100,000 overdose deaths. That is outrageous. That is something that no one ever expected, and that is an issue. Number 2, we have to look at cost. The cost for methadone for a whole year for a person that's in an outpatient treatment center, according to NIDA, which is the National Institute for Drugs, they say that $6,552 will cover methadone treatment for a year. Now, when we look at the cost of incarceration in Pennsylvania, and this is for state prison, $42,500 per year to house a person, and these are 2017 statistics. Mind-blowing when you look at how much it costs to house someone as opposed to actually having someone going into treatment. Also, what's critical to know is in 2018, less than 1% of jails and prisons in the US even offered offered MOUD medication for opioid use disorder. And then it's also critical to understand that 54% of persons who are incarcerated in state prisons have SUD, a substance use disorder. 61% of people who are incarcerated in jails have a substance use disorder. So when you look at this background, this is a reason for why we wanted to study what's going on in the jails, and then how do we help? Okay, so we did a descriptive study of 62 jails, county jails in the state of Pennsylvania. And we broke it down into Eastern District, Central, which is the Middle District, as well as the Western District. Now, our methodology was to obtain documents through Right to Know Law Act, government websites, what our clients are actually saying, because that's really the proof in the pudding, and also jail oversight board minutes. We looked at emails, we looked at flyers, we looked at guidelines, we looked at medication administration protocols, anything that we could find that would basically tell us what's going on in the jails as far as where they are with MOUD and MAT. That is what we looked at. And we looked at it across Pennsylvania. It was important for us to look at how many jails were in the Eastern District, how many in the Middle or Central District, and how many were in the Western District. Okay, so after we've gotten all of this data together, and I must acknowledge my colleague who worked on this project, Charlene Rojo Reyes, who is the paralegal on this project, what we were able to do was to look at all of the data, and we sort of categorized the jails according to 5 basic characteristics. Why we chose these characteristics is that according to SAMHSA, which is the organization for addictions, we know that the best program should have all 3 FDA-approved medications. A program should have an agonist medication offered, partial agonist, as well as antagonist. So we're looking at methadone, buprenorphine, as well as naltrexone. That's really what we should be seeing. That's really evidence-based practice. And one of the jails in the United States, which is the premier for actually implementing this kind of protocol, is in the state of Rhode Island. What's nice about Rhode Island is that they have a unified prison system, so everybody's following the same protocol. So this is what we looked at. We found that out of the 62 jails, 17% of the jails were offering no MOUD. That is just, who would think that in today's time with the overdose epidemic, that there would be actual jails in our state that's offering no medication for opioid use disorder. We also looked at what were the jails that only offered Vivitrol. 6% of the jails today are only offering Vivitrol, which is an antagonist. Now, the only problem with Vivitrol being offered, or the only drug that's available, is that a person will become incarcerated and they have to go through withdrawal, and it's only until a sentence date or release date has been identified will they actually be put on a waiting list to get Vivitrol. Vivitrol injections are normally given 3 months before they're going to be released. So what good is that? And then we looked at what jails are doing continuation. Continuation meaning that at the day that I'm incarcerated in your facility, if I'm on Suboxone, Methadone, Subutex, if I'm on that particular medication, will I be able to continue that medication throughout my incarceration? We found that 50% of the jails actually do a continuation. Now, let me qualify that we would be jumping up and down saying, wow, that's great. However, continuation is based on a few things. Number one, if the jail deems that you are eligible. So they have their own eligibility criteria. And just because you have OUD doesn't mean you're going to get your medication. The other piece is that in some of their policies, some of the jails will say, yes, you can continue on your medication. However, you have to have a court order. Well, how many attorneys know that at sentencing, to file for a court order for their client to be able to continue on MOUD? So now you still have a population that's withdrawing, even though they were on medication at the time of incarceration. And then we looked at—
And you have only a short time left.
And then we looked at taper and then induction. So what you're finding is that we do have jails that are continuing the medication. We also find that there are client experiences such as outright denial, where the jails were not allowing them to have their medication, improper administration of the medication, removal based on a urine analysis, COs that were administering medication instead of nurses, and also withdrawing in solitary confinement. We were successful in being able to file a lawsuit for a client with claims of violations of the American with Disabilities Act, the 14th Amendment, negligence claims. And just yesterday, we received an opinion from the court where the defendant's motions to dismiss were denied. Now, this is how we can help you, and this is how you can spread the word. We do advocacy. If you have clients who are at pre-incarceration, pre-trial, or incarcerated, we're able to help with advocacy, to advocate for your client to get their medication based on the stages of where they are in incarceration. We educate clients on their rights, how to file grievances, as well as what's entailed in filing a lawsuit. And we also assist with litigation. So thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to any questions you may have.
Thanks so much, Adrienne. And now we will turn to Stuart Fisk. Adrienne, if you can unshare your screen, great.
All right. Of course, my presentation went away. Here we go. Okay, can everybody see my screen and some semblance of me?
Yes.
So, so today, what I'd like to talk about really quickly, I know we're short on time, is how the Center for Inclusion Health at Allegheny Health Network in Pittsburgh is providing a continuum of care for people pre-incarceration, during incarceration, and post-incarceration, because I think it's really important to try to set up that continuum. Just real quickly, the Center for Inclusion Health was formed about 2015. Its goal is to provide health care for all and high quality access, particularly to groups who have traditionally been excluded from health care for various reasons. And we all know that drug users have often been excluded from high quality health care. And our Center for Recovery Medicine and several of our other programs have provided low barrier access to MOUD and healthcare services for people who use drugs. So we have a bunch of different programs here. I'm not going to go through them all. What I wanted to show was kind of how someone uses CIH. And one of the strengths of the Center for Inclusion Health is that all of these programs exist under a single roof within a large healthcare system. And so we have a lot of interconnectivity between these programs and can move people easily from one program to another. So I want to talk about AL, who was a 39-year-old traveler who was living in Pittsburgh, was street homeless, rough sleeper. He was initially connected to our street outreach and street medicine program and directed to the healthy food centers that we have at 5 of our hospitals that provide healthy food for folks. And he was then identified as needing or desiring recovery medicine services from our Center for Recovery Medicine, specifically Suboxone. He came into our Suboxone clinic here on the north side of Pittsburgh. He also had a partner who was pregnant and who was in need of perinatal services. And so we were able to connect her with both of them actually to the Perinatal Hope program, which provides, again, low barrier services for women who are pregnant and have substance use disorders. And then they were then connected with our doulas, with other community health workers that we employ within the Center for Inclusion Health. Unfortunately, AL did relapse and was incarcerated at the Allegheny County Jail, where unfortunately also he did not receive a continuation on his buprenorphine. But on discharge from the jail, he was able to connect with our post-incarceration program called the River Clinic and get restarted pretty immediately on discharge from jail back on Disposition. So the continuum of care that we try to provide for people here at the Center for Inclusion Health, for people who do need MOUD, first of all, the Center for Recovery Medicine, and I want to give a shout out to all of our recovery medicine folks who are on this program today. We also have the Positive Health Clinic, which is HIV primary care, which also provides buprenorphine and harm reduction-based services. And by the way, all of the services through Center for Inclusion Health are foundationally based in the harm reduction approach. We do have a contract with Prevention Point Pittsburgh, the needle exchange program here, to provide services on their medical vans. The last 6 months, we provided prescriptions for buprenorphine for 365 unduplicated patients with a retention rate exceeding 50%. So these are very low barrier sites. Obviously, we get quite a number of people from the Prevention Point sites who have legal issues and sometimes end up back in jail. So we do work and advocate to get them on Suboxone when they're in the jail. Our street medicine and homeless outreach programs provide a lot of connectivity with people on the streets who have opioid use disorder and get them low barrier access on the street or in our clinics. Allegheny Health Network is also the provider of health care providers in the Allegheny County Jail. So we provide prescribers in the jail. We don't run the jail medical service. The county does that, but we do provide the providers. And I also want to give a shout out to Janice Anderson, who's in the crowd today, who's been doing MOUD provision for pregnant women in the county jail for a number of years and is a great advocate inside the jail. I would also mention that I will be in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, actually be a provider of MOUD services in the jail to try to increase and expand their capacity to get everybody who needs it on MOUD. And then, of course, the River Post-Incarceration Clinic, which we started in June of last year. I think everybody probably understands why post-incarceration care is important. We do a lot of work when people are incarcerated, hopefully to get them on appropriate medication and health care regimens. And very often, once they're released from jail, they don't reconnect with services. So the River Clinic can provide them with immediate access to medical services on release from jail. We have a mobile clinic that actually parks outside the jail 2 days a week, and then we have staff in the River Clinic that can actually go into the jail, meet with people prior to discharge, and set up appointments with them to see us when they get out. And that includes the immediate start for MOUD, either continuation or start if people were not started in the Allegheny County Jail. Currently, the Allegheny County Jail provides MOUD for pregnant women and a continuation for people. But again, there's a lot of stipulations around who gets continuation services for buprenorphine and methadone, and we're going to work to try to make those more comprehensive and inclusive. So this is sort of the structure that we have. I'm not going to go through all of that, but we have a pretty comprehensive model of reaching out into the jail and trying to make sure that people are navigated to post-incarceration care. If we miss people when they're released on the weekends or after hours, we have community health workers and people who can go out and find people, locate them, and get them connected to care. I will stop there.
Hey, thank you so much. All right. All right. Next, we have Jerome Maynard. So, Mr. Maynard, if you could unmute and then you can start.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jerome Maynard. I'm 72 years old. On March the 15th, 2020, I was arrested and I went to the county jail, Allegheny County Jail. At the time, I was on 75 milligrams of methadone. When I got into jail, I was okay that first day. The second day, I was somewhat okay. The third day, I started going through withdrawal because I didn't have my medication, so I couldn't get any help there. And on the fourth day, I passed out. I completely passed out. They had to bring me back with smelling sauce. It took them a month and 10 days to get me out to the hospital because I fell backwards on my head. So I had lost, my vision was affected by me having that fall, but it took them a month and a half to get me out to go get it checked out. Luckily, thank God that everything was no fractures or nothing. So as a result of that, I get back in the jail. I'm sick. I'm so sick. I'm really fearful of my life because 75 milligrams of methadone, cold turkey, and man, at my age, I was fearful for my life. So I couldn't get any help. So when I went in front of the judge for my GAG 2 hearing, that's when I was introduced to Adrian and her crew from Pennsylvania Institute of Law Project. So I couldn't get any help. I was fearful for my life. I lost so much weight. I was down to like 112 pounds. And then on top of that, I catch the corona in the jail. On top of me detoxing off of the methadone, my resistance was so low that I was really fearful. I thought I was going to die. But as God would have it, he intervened and I got through that. But that was the worst experience I ever experienced in my life. Because I really was fearful of my life. I thought I was going to die in that jail. So I got Adrian and them to come into my life. And all I want to do is see if I can change the policy in that jail. Because as I was told, the women that come in that jail that's pregnant, that's on methadone, they take them out every day to get medicated, but they don't do nothing for the men. So I feel violated, and I feel like they violated my rights by not getting me any help for me for what I went through in that jail. So I'm just grateful to be today. I'm doing good. I'm out. I'm back to work. I'm an outreach worker. I work for Central Outreach Resource and Referral, and my job description is I go out in the communities, and in my backpack I have the Narcan, I have the condoms, I have the literature. Anybody got a drug and alcohol problem, want some help, I'm one of the people to get them up in treatment. So I'm just grateful to be back to work. I didn't gain so much weight. I'm up to 180 pounds now, but I'm healthy, so I'm just grateful to be a part of this, this phase here as far as seeing if we can make a change in these jails, because I don't want another man to go through that jail or female that go to that jail that can't get the help that they need. So I really, really appreciate you guys having me on so I can tell my story, and I hope I make an impact somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maynard, and just thank you so much for sharing your story and also your perseverance through that whole process and being so willing to share your story with all of us.